Former United States Senator Russ Feingold of Wisconsin is currently out of office, but hardly out of the political picture. And on our #1 story on the countdown, Feingold added his influential voice to the Occupy Wall Street movement over the weekend as it spread to his state's capital city with Occupy Madison. Mr. Feingold said people have a limit. How long can you rip people off before they start responding? Feingold now leads a group called Progressives United. Last winter, he supported public workers against the radical union busting of Republican Governor Scott Walker. The current protests in Madison do not have the numbers and energy yet of what happened last winter. But as Feingold put it yesterday, we didn't invent protesting in Wisconsin, but we took it to a new level. As promised, Russ Feingold, former U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, co-author of McCain-Feingold, and founder of Progressives United. Good to talk to you, sir.
Keith, wonderful to be on your show.
How far do you think this can go, and what is essentially there has to be a political endgame to it at some point. What's the process by which it causes change to be enacted?
Well, I think this can go very far, and I think it will. What I like to say is by the time this thing is done, it's going to make the Tea Party look like a tea party. It will be very extensive, and the reason is the crimes against the working people of this country have mounted up. And people have finally realized they can't stop. They have to actually deal with it. They can't just take it. And obviously the Wall Street abuses keep going, the protection of the very wealthy, that they don't have to participate in trying to deal with our deficit problems, the complete domination of the political process by unlimited secret contributions, the shipping of our jobs overseas through lousy trade agreements while at the same time taking away the collective bargaining rights of public employees. You know, it's finally reached the point where people are saying, that's it, we are tired of being ripped off, and they're responding. And I think once that's unleashed, it keeps going.
Was there a tipping point? You mentioned so many different things that certainly have contributed to this. Was it in fact, did this ball start really rolling in that one direction with the thing that your group, Progressives United, so vehemently opposes, the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court about a year and a half ago?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a combination of factors. One is the economy being in terrible shape and not rebounding, and then these Tea Party people pretend that they're going to try to solve the problem, but they come into office and they essentially help make the deficit worse by not having wealthy people participate in solving the problem. They're actually for less regulation of Wall Street, and the Republicans are, and all of a sudden people realize they're not going to get reform at all. Then they understand that much of this is being financed. Took a while before it was implemented, took a while before people saw it happening. They realize that this is being financed through huge contributions from corporations. The Koch brothers, helped finance this awful attack on working people in Wisconsin. So the evidence finally mounted. Got college students that are graduating after having had loans over the years. They're not getting any jobs. And finally, how long can people be made fools of? And they're saying, wait a minute, we have no alternative. The government isn't solving this problem. We're going to start protesting. And I'm just very excited that that's starting to happen.
Bernie Sanders came out quickly in support of this. I've already mentioned that this evening, and John Lewis did too, and Minority Leader Pelosi was pretty strong over the weekend too, and there have been others. But where are the other leading liberals and Democrats? Do you have a sense that people are still hanging back, and what's going to get them to stop doing so?
This is no time to hang back. One of the biggest problems Democrats have is that they forget the power and the passion that the base of the party has. And actually, this is well beyond the Democratic Party. These are just working people all over the country, or people who want to work, who have just had it. To not understand the power of that kind of populism, to not encourage it, to not embrace it, is a huge mistake. This is not a time for cautious politics. This is not a time for saying, well, we better just go a little bit this way or that way. This is a time to fundamentally identify the crooked way this country is being run, the corruption of Wall Street, the ridiculous notion that very wealthy people are basically saying they shouldn't have to help us solve our problems. It's time to take it up a few notches, and I think every office holder and every leader in the country should say thank you to the people who are out there protesting.
If some liberals and even more Democrats are not active, certainly the opponents of Occupy Wall Street and the related Occupy movements are as active as anything. There've been suggestions that this always leads to the guillotine or Chairman Mao or whatever else has been said, the nonsense that's been said in response to it. But even Paul Krugman wrote in the New York Times today that the plutocrats are panicking. Is that your sense as well, and do they in fact have good reason to do so?
Yeah, and let's face it, sometimes it's even Democrats who are part of this money system, and so there's some nervousness, especially on the Republican side, certainly on Wall Street and Washington where the power structure is. My observation is they're very nervous that this might work. What sort of set me off on this, Keith, was making the mistake of watching Fox News in the morning the other day and watching these people, Varney and the others, mocking the protesters, making fun of the way they were dressed, saying they didn't have, a precise agenda, to which I said, they're not filing briefs at the Supreme Court. They're upset. And so my sense is that there is great fear that this sweet deal that a lot of these people have in both Washington and New York, this unholy alliance between our government and our media and the financial markets and the financial businesses, that this unholy alliance is finally being threatened and challenged. It is a threat. It is a threat and an attack on every working American, and it's time that we upset the apple cart. And I think they are nervous, and they know this has great potential.
All right, how do we upset the apple cart without you in office? And I don't mean that as to blow smoke anywhere, but quite seriously, everybody who's ever stood up for something needs to be on board. I'm not criticizing you for not being in office, but when will we see that happen again?
Well, look, being in office is not what it's all about. Obviously, it's one way to do it. I did that for 28 years. But to me, what we're dealing with here is a situation where Congress can't even vote to overturn Citizens United. You can't do that. The only way to do it is a mass public movement to make it very clear that this Supreme Court decision has to be overturned, that it is a direct attack on our democracy. So this goes beyond electoral politics and who's in office and who isn't. It's much more fundamental. And everybody, in or out of office, has to work together to try to turn this thing around. So that's where I'm focused on right now. And frankly, I like the freedom to be able to particularly focus on this issue. There were many other great issues when I was in the Senate, but this is the big overriding issue. This is what's destroying our democracy, Keith, as you know as well as anybody. Unlimited corporate contributions have to be stopped.
Okay. Russ Feingold, former senator for Wisconsin. Great thanks for your service, sir, and for your time tonight.
Thanks so much, Keith.